Now this is no-till gardening at its finest, in my opinion. Cover over the old line, put the soil back. Right, spread the mulch out a little bit. I'm going to add more mulch to this as it comes again. Hey, it's Greg here with MaritimeGardening.com, and I'm planting some garlic, and I thought I would show you a neat little trick that you can, a way you can take advantage of the no-till approach. So here I've got a garden with nice kohlrabi, right? And it's middle of October, and I'm really not ready to pull these yet. I like to get, once you get to the point of the year when you're getting frost every single night, which usually happens by now, but this year it just seems to be a late, kind of the fall seems to be dragging on. So it's last couple nights hasn't been below zero. We haven't had frost the last few nights. We've had some nights with frost, and we've had some nights without frost, I guess. And the point is that I don't have to pull these yet. These are still fine out here. You can see the greens are still growing, and they're still just fine to be left out. And in fact, they'll just improve with flavor. We had, I think today is Canadian Thanksgiving, but we tend to have our big, enormous Thanksgiving meal the day before on the Sunday usually. So I cut one of those up and just roasted it in 1.5-inch chunks, the way I would cook just about any other root vegetable, and it was delicious. And then for those that want to, I guess some people ask, I like to mix it in with beets. So I have hunks of beets and hunks of kohlrabi, and you toss it all together with a little salt, pepper, and vegetable oil, and roast it in the oven for 50 minutes to an hour, however long it takes the things to get tender. And that's pretty much how I like to roast any root vegetable. And it worked out great. They're very sweet. This is, I think they're called Cossack. I think it's an F1 hybrid. It's Cossack kohlrabi. So I believe that's the variety. So anyway, I'm not ready to pull these yet, but this is the bed where I want to plant my garlic for next year. I've been planting garlic everywhere in my garden, and I'm down to the last of my seed garlic. So 200 plus garlic in the ground, garlic cloves in the ground. This is the last of it. So this is where, in terms of my rotation schedule, garlic is supposed to be for next year, but I still got all this stuff growing here. But it doesn't matter, because I don't have to till this. I can just jam them in, right? I'm going to plant the garlic all about 14 inches apart, so I can plant onions in between the garlic rows. And the rows go perpendicular to the length of the garden. It's just the way I do things. It doesn't have to be that. There's no hard fast rule. So anyway, here I can just jam them in. This is just weeds here. Throw that over there for now, so I can see what I'm doing. I throw the weeds off into the next bed, just so I can see what I'm doing. But I'm really not doing much in terms of weeding here. I'm going to sort of remulch this once I get some more mulch. I want to use grass clippings on this. Anyway, I'm just going to jam these in. You might ask, how do you sort of stay on top of where you've got garlic and where you don't have garlic? And when you're sowing like this, remember I'm planting them about 2 or 3 inches deep. And all you have to do is don't cover your beds over until you're a couple beds ahead. So I just planted a little row here. There's only 3. I'm not covering them over yet until I get the next line planted, and then I'll cover these. Now just go off like that so you always know where your last line was. And I hope that makes sense. So let's do the next line here. I can use this trowel as a basic gauge. So my next line is going to be right along here. Here, let me bring the camera around and show you. Alright, so I got a line here, and I've made my space, so the next line is going to be right here. And yeah, there's some stuff sort of growing here. I can move a couple of these kohlrabi leaves out of the way. They're kind of, insect bitten and mussed up anyway, so some of them I might bring into the house to eat. They're really not doing much for the plant anyway, so they're just kind of in my way. So why not just get rid of them? Alright, so there's my line. So now I'll just jam these guys in. Right, one every a couple inches. I'm just using my hands here. One hand span apart. There's a general spacing. When it's time to take these things out, I'll just cut them off as low as I can cut them. Instead of pulling them out, right, and messing up all the soil, I'll just cut them off really low with a knife. That way it won't mess the soil up. All right, there's that line. Now just go back here and cover everything over. Right, reposition the mulch. That's done. Now we'll do our next line. Here's the line we just planted. Make us, get a bit of a space. Another way to do it is muss up the mulch a little bit, just so you can, sort of identify your space. I'm going to pop off all these kohlrabi leaves that really aren't doing much other than feeding pests. Right, pop them off. They're not doing any good. Some of those might be able to go into, I know there's always these comments, you can use that, that's still food, da, 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 da. Yeah, I know, I'm making a turkey soup today, so maybe some of those will find their way into the soup, if they're not, as long as they're a nice green color. Alright, so there's our next line. 1, 2, 3, 4. The idea. Now this is no-till gardening at its finest, in my opinion. Now I cover over the old line, put the soil back, right? Spread the mulch out a little bit. I'm going to add more mulch to this as it becomes available to me this fall. But anyway, for now, this is fine. Right? All right. I know where this line is. Now I'll measure off the next one. Anyway, so that's the general idea. Right, it doesn't have to be a big production. I mean, I've done videos where I scraped off all the, pulled out all the weeds, scraped off all the mulch, leveled it all out with the rake, planted the garlic, and put a mulch back on top. And that's one way you can do it. And especially if your soil's all uneven, because you've been doing, moving potatoes around and stuff like that. That might, you adapt the approach to the particular garden. In this bed here, the soil is very level, so there's no leveling needed to be done. Right? I mean, the only thing I have left to do in this garden is harvest these kohlrabi. And at the far end of the garden, there's some, what are they called? Jersey walking stick or tree collards, a kind of collard green. But those things can just keep growing. And I can put the garlic cloves in the ground where I was going to put them anyway, right? And when it's end of the year, when it's time to finally get rid of those things, I'll just cut them off really low and let the roots just rot out beneath them. Sure, there's a risk of some pests having their eggs at the base of those roots, but I've done this before. it's not a real problem. And some people might say that if I cut it off low, those plants will come back. I have never had that happen in my garden. I know it can happen in people's gardens, but it's cold enough here where the roots of most cole crops, and there's people that live in the same province as me that say differently, so it's unique to my location. Cole crop roots that stay on the ground here, the plant dies. The only way I can get something like a kale to come back the following year is to have it in a cold frame all winter long in some sort of protected microclimate. It's a black fly around the camera lens, sorry about that. Anyway, so I hope you found that interesting. If you did, please like, share, subscribe. Check out my podcast, maritimegardening.com, and until next time, get out there, get at it, plant some garlic. Thanks for watching.